DJ, has anyone, anyways, that you're aware of, made good on your promise to the listeners last week? Because you mentioned something about what would happen if the Panthers lost to the Lions, and that came true. Did anyone make good on that bet?
I had a couple of people send me a couple of text messages wondering how that was going, but nobody showed up at the door yet. Thank God nobody knows where I live, but none of you guys showed up either. Maybe I'm just too far away from our guy friends.
We'll explain that in a second, but for the meantime, let's get loaded. Guys, welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast,
where we never finish first because we finish last.
This is the Loaded Box Podcast, and we are your hosts, Ben Morgan and DJ Primo. And if you have no idea what we were talking about there, it's because you missed last week's Against the Spread preview pod, where DJ said if the Lions somehow lost to the Panthers, anyone was free to make love to his wife. But no one's taken you up on the offer so far. I live too far away.
I mean, I don't even make love to my wife. So, I need to address something after that just wonderful line I just dropped. We get a lot of criticism from the last podcast where I mentioned finger in the butthole, and you're like, oh, you're so elementary sometimes. Well, you know what, people? You don't really realize the value of a good finger in your butthole until you've suffered hemorrhoids, all right? Because there's nothing that feels better than a finger in my butthole, no exaggeration, than when you have hemorrhoids. So you know what? Maybe you will end up taking me up on that when you suffer through those hemorrhoids. Now who's laughing?
Man. I don't know if you need the finger. Just take the ass bath. I've been telling you for years, take the ass bath.
I've taken like 3 of them in the last 5 days, so.
All right. I'm sure that ass baths or wives or something's going to come up a little bit later. But for the meantime, this is our second preview podcast of the week. Earlier this week, we hit our daily fantasy sports and fantasy football talk. Make sure you check that one out. But this podcast, we're back to preview the actual games, our weekly straight-up picks, our weekly against the spread picks. Man, this is the one that I know that you like this. I kind of like the DFS one. Like, I'm all about fantasy. I love betting, but like lately, like fantasy has sort of taken over where you have just embraced the against the spread picks. So how did you feel looking into this week? What's your strategy going into this week?
My strategy is I have no idea what the fuck is going on. So I just found 3 games that
This is a tough week.
Just kind of coin toss. I found one medium game, one in between medium and not confident game, and one just not confident at all, but just overly cocky type of game.
Yeah, I know
some fun with.
You always give me crap when I never when I fail to do the previous week's update. So I remember to do it this week. You bounced back. You had a nice week. You went 2-1. You only won a unit. You won a 5-unit play, but you lost a 5-unit play. But you won the 1-unit play, so at least you finished ahead of the game.
Carolina really screwed me over, screwed a lot of people over. It was just bad. They should have won that game. Shouldn't have went for 2. I don't know what they're doing. They just got off a big loss, and it's a crucial game in the playoff picture for them when it comes to the wild card. Why do you go for 2 there? It doesn't make any sense.
The thing is, man, we've seen this happen before. All of a sudden, a team goes for it, and all of a sudden, you're the edgy coach. You had a chance to win the game, and you did it. And you get all the praise when it works. But when it doesn't work, yeah, you get questioned like what you just did.
There's no desperateness in this, though. Like, it's like, hey, we need to win to make sure that we're staying ahead of the game.
Yeah.
No, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Against a team that you're better than.
Yeah, and week 12 here, it's a little wild. I mean, normally we're typically used to having the one Thursday night game. We look forward to it as NFL fans just because of the fact that it's football. We get to watch it. But Thanksgiving always feels a little bit different because now you get the 3 games. You get the early game, the 3 o'clock game, and the night game. So we're going to hit all those games. Let's start right away with the first one. We got the Bears and the Lions. What do you like in here?
All right, so this is in Detroit. The Bears are 3.5-point favorites on the road. The over-under here is 45. And guess what, Ben?
Tell me what.
It wouldn't be betting if I wasn't getting a little Thursday action.
Ooh.
And this is on my card. And this is actually my most confident of the 3 games going into this weekend.
Starting
this is
right
only
away.
a 3-unit game for me. But let me tell you what, Jaws. Let me tell you what. You listen real close. Let me scroll down to mine and not to yours, though.
I'm trying to listen, and now you're not big. Now you've teased it too much.
Look, I have said it once, and I'll say it again. Chicago they're just not a very good football team. Yeah, they beat the Vikings. Heck, I even picked them to beat the Vikings. I bet them to beat the Vikings. I bet them against the Vikings on the spread Sunday night. You could just tell that's something that's going to happen. I've told you that Minnesota is also a mediocre team. Both, I don't think, are really that great of football teams. Also, the Packers, you could probably argue the same thing, but we'll see. But starting Thursday, they're going to lose a few games coming up here. I'm telling you right now. And that's going to start with this one. Can I ask you a little trivia question for you right away here off the bat for the Lions and the Bears matchup?
All right, I'm ready. I've never been more ready for one of your trivia questions.
You remember where this game is at, right?
You said Detroit.
When is the last time the Bears beat the Lions in Detroit?
Oh my gosh, can I have multiple choice? Can you give me 3 answers?
Sure, I'll make them up. I better not say like June 4th or something like that, right? All right. September.
I don't need the damn month. Give me the year.
All right. 2011, 2012, 2013.
I'm going to go with 11. I'm just going to take the long one.
12/30, 2012. They haven't beat them in Detroit since December, and it was the end of the year, albeit, of 2012.
And just to give a little context to that as well, obviously their divisional opponents, they play there every year, so that's a sad stat.
That's every year. So this will be the 6th year that they'll be going on. So 5 years in a row. The Bears can't beat Detroit on the road, and that's just fact. I just laid it out for you. You will see the mediocrity the Bears possess in these next couple of weeks coming up. And I just need something to feed my hunger on Thanksgiving Day. And you guys need something to feed your hunger on Thanksgiving Day. And why not let it be my most confident pick when I'm dropping the best stat you guys have heard? That stat doesn't convince you, then you can go F yourself.
There's something about the Lions on Thanksgiving, right? I mean, they just seem to bring it more often. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe they're just more used to playing on that game than other teams. So I'm looking at this game straight up, and on my list of my winners straight up, I had the Bears. And you know what strategy I'm going to incorporate? Because this is not one of my games. That's going to be my top 3 games to bet on this week. I am historically terrible on Thursday games, and I think it's going to start early this year. I'm not feeling it on Thanksgiving. I have the Bears written down. You convinced me. I'm taking the Lions straight up, and I'm taking the points. Taking the points. Let's move on. Go ahead.
You can't dispute that stat. I knew once I said that stat, you were going to change your mind.
You are a salesman today. You are a salesman today. Let's move on to that second Thanksgiving game. It's the Cowboys and Indians. We got the Cowboys and the Redskins.
This is the Cowboys and Indians again. What the hell is going on here? All right. This game, of course, in Dallas, Thanksgiving. Dallas favored by 7 here. The Redskins, shit. I mean, the Indians, the R-words are 7-point dogs. It's 40.5 for the over-under. And their starting quarterback, don't forget, is
Colt.
I know, but I just get like a brain freeze because if it's the Cowboys versus Indians, but Colt McCoy is a quarterback for the Indians, that seems like it should be the other way around. Seems like Dak should be the quarterback for the R-words, and Colt should be the quarterback for the Cowboys.
It's friendly fire. They should trade for this game only.
Yeah, that's really, I don't like that. They need to switch quarterbacks.
How is Colt McCoy still in the league, but Colin Kaepernick isn't? Like all these other guys.
Colt McCoy is one of the better backups, actually, though.
Yeah, he's out there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what do you like?
What did you say the line was? 7.5? 7.
Dallas is favored by 7.
All right, so straight up, I'm taking the Cowboys, and it has a lot to do with the fact that it is Colt McCoy playing. Like Redskins. I mean, I've bet on them all these weeks in a row, and finally last week I went 2-1. I bet on them 3 weeks in a row here, or at least their game, and that field goal at the end by the Texans, it cost me. I apologize to those of you that listened. We had a great chance at winning. We failed. I already gave props to DJ prior to this episode. He can win that game. I feel bad, but it is what it is. That defense is still no joke. That scares me a little bit because, honestly, if the Cowboys can't get Zeke going, they are still not that good. What they were able to do against Atlanta last week, Zeke was able to get it going on the ground. He was able to actually catch a few balls as well. Dak ended up looking better, and they just kind of stuck it to Atlanta. And Atlanta has this great offense, especially at home. Dallas's defense showed up. And if Dallas's defense shows up against the Redskins, who are a much worse offense, especially with the brand new quarterback into the mix, I think I almost have to take the Cowboys against the spread even in this game.
This is a game where I would sprinkle money on the Redskins money line here, and here's
Oh,
why.
wow. That's
I
ballsy.
actually think Colt McCoy may be the same, if not a better quarterback than Alex Smith. I'm kind of seeing what Alex Smith, he was kind of a product of the systems he was in, right?
Yeah.
Look at the Chiefs now. Look at the Niners after he was done with Colin Kaepernick. They went to the Super Bowl.
How funny is it to look back on that? Like, Alex Smith was always thought about as this game manager. Like, I can get the job done. I just can't quite get it done in the playoffs. And now these other teams, like you said, the 49ers went to the Super Bowl as soon as they got rid of him.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs look like they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So what is he really? Was he a guy that actually brought a team down away from their potential? Probably. I actually like Colt McCoy. I do think the Cowboys are garbage. This is the mistake people are going to make. They had a couple of games. People are going to be hot on Dallas. They stink. Dak is bad. Washington has a good defense. I would not be surprised at all, in the least bit, if the R-Words go in and win this game in Dallas.
Is this an official play for you, or are you just giving a hot take?
No, I just like that.
Okay. Well, let's go on to that last Thanksgiving game. We got the nightcap. We got the Saints and the Falcons, little NFC South battle.
Look, all right, let's talk about it first. So it's Falcons in New Orleans. Spread is 13. That's just incredible. The Saints are 13-point favorites against the Atlanta Falcons. The over-under is 60. So in this game, I'll give quick analysis. Look, I've bet against the Saints like the last 5 games, and I've lost every single one of them. So I'm done. Saints. If I had to bet, I'm probably not going to. I'm not going to bet on any more Saints game because, the game that I bet for the Saints is going to be the game that they lose. I'm done with it. If I had to bet one side, it'd be the Saints because they just keep winning and covering it. But it's 60 points. Definitely going over. Yeah,
I was actually just going to say, it's not an official play for me, but Saints straight up all day. I'm definitely taking the Saints straight up. There's not a doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah.
That spread is aggressive. That over-under is aggressive. But, man, it's what I've learned with the Saints is, can you put the number too high? I mean, they just put that game over last week against the Eagles, and the Eagles scored 7 points. If the Falcons score,
they didn't put it over.
On the line that I had, I got it over.
I was pissed. I was pissed because I bet on it, and it didn't go over. And they had 3 opportunities to score a touchdown at the goal line, which they were trying to score on, and I was losing my mind.
Yeah, that sucked if you got that line change. But when we recorded the podcast last week, I still hit the over.
Well, this is real life, Ben. That was actual money on the line, all right? I don't give a shit about what you said.
Well, I won it, so I'm cool. But man, they proved that games have the potential of going over despite their opponents not scoring or hardly scoring at all. So for that sake alone, man, if the Falcons can bounce back a little bit here, that's an easy over, right? I mean, it's still 60 points, but I
still can't think the Saints defense is like the juggernaut after that game.
You've forced me to make picks. This is not an official pick, but you said I have to make a call on every single one of these games. So if you're making me have a call here, I'm going to go over. So that's what I've got. Let's move on from Thanksgiving and move.
What was that?
Don't you worry about it. That's adult onsite puberty if you're a new listener. Let's move on to Sunday. I don't want to talk too much about this game yet because actually
I do.
This is one of your games?
Yeah.
We both are actually taking this game. I'm excited to talk about it now. It's the Jaguars and the Bills. You have an official play here.
I have official play here. I didn't even realize you did because I don't look at your shit. That's what's fun about our podcast, people. So you want me to go? So Jaguars are favored by 3 in Buffalo.
Yep.
And the over-under. Now, in Buffalo without Nathan Peterman. Remember that. I don't even know who the Bills quarterback is. Is Josh Allen back?
Josh Allen may be back. If not, it's Barkley, who snubbed my recreation football team. Yes.
The over-under is a
whopping,
incredible, dominating 37.5 points.
That's a half for the Chiefs.
That is a half for the Chiefs and the Rams.
Right.
Who wants to go first on this one?
I will. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. I've got.
I'm ready too. I'm just saying.
All right, so remember a few weeks back I was betting on the Jaguars and they took a dump against the Cowboys. And I said, you know what? I'm not betting on the Jaguars until they prove it. And guess what? The Jaguars haven't proven anything to me yet. But
hey,
what?
They covered.
Yes, kind of. But
good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, Jaguars haven't given me enough to warrant this bet. However, this week is so hard for me. I have to take the Jaguars at that -3. I'm going 2 units on it. The Buffalo Bills are not going to shock the world again with Barkley, with Josh Allen, with anybody. They got Nathan Peterman out of the house, so maybe that's a sign of good things to come. I just don't see it happening for Buffalo this week. You looked at the Jaguars last week against the Steelers.
Yeah, they should have won that game.
Jags had the Steelers dead, and I was listening to a show that broke down the Jaguars' last plays on their final 3 to 4 drives, and it was just terrible play calling. It was 4 net up the middle, incomplete pass, 4 net up the middle. They don't trust Blake Bortles. In my opinion,
gotta let him throw. He's the boat.
I mean, you have to let it throw because if you put handcuffs on an NFL quarterback like that, defenses are good enough to take advantage of you, and that's exactly what the Steelers did. But, man, I just think that the Bills are getting in their own way if they keep winning games here. They need to start losing more games, and the Jaguars need to turn it around here. I'm expecting a big bounce-back game from the Jags D. They looked good against the Steelers for the most part until the very end there. This is going to be an ugly game. No one should watch this game. So for the sake of having a little bit of rooted interest in this, I'm actually making it one of my official plays. When you think of this game, you looked at Monday Night Football, Chiefs-Rams. Think exact opposite. That's what you're going to get here. But I'm going to go with the Jags. They haven't done anything to earn my trust, but I'm going to give them a benefit of the doubt here. 2 units, Jags -3.
So everybody knows where I'm going to go. Everybody who's listened, everybody who doesn't listen. I'm a Blake Bortles backer. I'm a Jaguars rider. I keep saying I'm not going to bet them, and then I keep betting them. I have to think I'm taking Jaguars, obviously, here. I have to think that Jacksonville can finally get off this damn losing streak. It's 6 in a row they've lost here. I'm going to ride these fucks until they win a game straight up. Even though they won against the spread last week, I'm going to keep riding them until they win a freaking game. Because I want to say I was there. When they got off the Schneider. I was on that, and we won together. I have to believe when they win, not if they win, when they win this week, no chance by that it's by any less than 3. It's very rare. Buffalo team sucks. Their quarterback stinks. Everything about them stinks, besides their defense is kind of decent.
Yeah, defense is actually more solid, especially for how often they're on the field. It's pretty impressive.
Hence why it's a 37 and a half point or whatever over-under. I'm not confident. It's only 2 units, but I'm riding with Bortles. I'm riding with the Jags, who should have beat the Steelers. And they still had that interception in the end zone to end the game. I don't know if you saw that, which would have ended the game. But then there was a penalty. Which gave Roethlisberger the ball back, which would have been 4th interception, which I told you.
Yeah, you said he was going to throw 4 picks.
He did.
Right. So that seems crazy that we're both betting on the same game against the Jaguars. I never thought I'd see that day that I would stoop to your level. Let's move on to the next one. We've got the Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals.
God damn it, you and your moving. All right, this game's in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's favored by 3 points. Still AJ greenless as far as I know.
Greenless, I love it.
And the over-under is 47 and a half.
Correct.
I'm spitballing here, all right? Because I didn't really look much into this game. But since this game is not in Cleveland, I took Cleveland on the road at home, and I think we hit that last time. I'm going to go with Cincinnati this one, just for the sake of I don't know how good Baker and Cleveland are on the road. I like the home team in this division matchup. Andy Dalton probably air it out. He's got better weapons, I think, around him. I don't know. The weapons are pretty close, but he's a more experienced quarterback in this situation. They need to win. Wild card is still so close at the damn. What is the record of the Bengals right
now? They are 5-5 right now. It's still in the midst of the wild card.
And they're still in the running, so they need to win. Cleveland's Cleveland. Got to go with Cincy in this game.
Believe it or not, this is actually an official pick for me.
Really?
This is part of my top 3, and it's a point total play. I'm going over the 47.5 here. 2 units, once again, it's a 2-unit play. Defense is not a real thing in this game, in my opinion. Nope. Browns are allowing 26. Bengals are allowing 31. Bengals, we said it on the preview podcast for fantasy earlier this week. Bengals are basically last in every single important defensive category right now. Cleveland, if you look at their point totals, 2 of their last 3 games have gone over, and then they've had the bye week to prepare for this game. So I think Your DFS quarterback, Baker, my sleeper wide receiver, Jarvis, I think there's going to get a little chemistry there. I think they're going to get something going here after that bye week. I see some points being scored. Now you look at the Bengals. 3 straight overs, but they're giving points up to everybody. They gave up 34 to Tampa, 51 to the Saints, 24 last week to Baltimore. I watched that game. It should have been more. Literally should have been more points. And I talked in the DFS podcast a couple days ago. Andy Dalton, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon. Love them all in fantasy this week. I think they have nice fantasy days. I think that equates a lot of touchdowns. I think that equals points. Cincinnati, 7 of their 10 games this year have gone over. I see that streak continuing. I think they beat the Browns. I think they put up points. I see Bengals 28, Browns 25. Don't ask me how the Browns got 25 points, but they did it. 28-25 winners, easy over.
Did you just insert your name into Bengals and call them the Bengals?
I might have. That kind of crossed my mind when I said it.
You are just an egotistical asshole. You're so vain.
You probably think this podcast is about you.
It is.
Anything else you want to move on? Next. All right, we got the Patriots and the Jets. What do you got here?
All right, this game's in New York. Let's not spend a lot of time on this. Game's in New York. Patriots are favored by 9.5 on the road. I should say New Jersey. And the over-under is 46.5. I'm taking New England off the bye, no doubt, trying to get off that rusty, shitty game against Tennessee.
Yeah, you are going to get the same opinion by me just because I'm not a big believer in the Jets and what they're doing at this point. You kind of hit it with the DFS podcast. The Patriots they've been getting some wins. They just haven't really looked good in the process recently. They had that close game against the Packers. They got blown out by the Titans. Now they get a down Jets team after a bye. It's like, what do you really expect? But there's no way. I said the same thing against the Titans, so there's maybe a chance. But I don't see the Jets winning this game outright for sure. I'm taking the Patriots straight up. And I just can't bet on the Jets against the spread in this one. So, yeah, give me the Patriots as well.
But the one thing is, the Jets do say they're optimistic about Darnold returning this week.
Yeah.
He's sad, but they're optimistic.
Glad they're optimistic about something. Let's talk about an NFC East rivalry game in this next one. We got the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants.
This game's in Philadelphia. Philadelphia just coming off of 2 of the shittiest games you'll ever see back-to-back. Who can have confidence in them? Favored by 6. Over-under is 46.5. There's no way that I want to have faith in Philadelphia right now. There's no way. So, in the interest of usually solid defense in a crappy field, this feels like a low-scoring, grinded-out game where there's not going to be a lot of scoring. There's probably going to be a couple interceptions, lots of punts, Big Ten style. Let's go under the 46. I don't really like that spread. It makes me nervous.
Do you ever get the gut feeling in a game? Like you just said, the Eagles haven't looked good the last couple of games. Do you ever have that feeling though, like you just think maybe they have it in them? They can bounce back. No. They can score points. Don't you just think that the Giants are the perfect team to do that against?
I thought that they were going to do this last week and the week before, and now I'm done with that. I don't care. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. What is that? J. Cole line?
Bet on the Giants.
bet the Giants.
I think that's how that goes. Man, straight up in this game, I have to take the Eagles. And when I looked at this, so I always go through and then I kind of have like a spread in mind. And if I'm like off by quite a few points, I end up taking that team. And I was like, you know what? If this is more than like 3.5 or so, I'd probably take the Giants. So when I saw that, this is one of those weird games where I'm taking the Eagles straight up, but I think it might be a little bit closer. So if I'm getting almost a touchdown, I'm going to have to go with the Giants against the spread. Not an official play. I'm throwing that out there. It's not an official play, but gun to my head against the spread. Give me the Giants.
Nice rhyme. Fool me 3 times, fuck the peace sign, load the chopper, let it rain on you. There we go.
Bet on the Giants. And before we get to the next pick, let's talk real quick about a little Pristine Auction. Because they are a sponsor of this podcast, make sure you head over to pristineauction.com. I got tons of gear for the man cave. And if you're looking for something even cheaper than that, even though you can find great deals on pristineauction.com, make sure you check Yeah, so make sure you check out the Loaded Box on Twitter. We're found at Loaded Box conveniently. And you can win this Devontae Adams signed mini helmet that I'm holding. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it firsthand. But it was signed by Devontae Adams on a Blaze Green Bay Packers mini helmet. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Find the tweet that is labeled correctly. You can't miss it. It's always towards the top of our page. Retweet that. Make sure you're following. Tag a friend. Show that you're subscribed on either iTunes or Google Play, and you will have a chance to win this beautiful mini helmet. So with that, DJ, let's move on to the next game, which is the Tampa Bay Bucks and the San Francisco 49ers. Is there a less relevant game in the NFL this week?
Before we get to that, I want to say whoever wins that, don't mind the stain on the plastic box. That's why we have the helmet covered up.
It is. If you're watching once again on YouTube,
don't mind my white stain on the plastic box.
There are 0 holes in this box, so everything that you may think DJ's doing to it as a loving Packers fan, it is in good hands. You're fine.
That's why I bet it has it covered in plastic. It's like its own condom. So we are going San Francisco, Tampa Bay here. Games in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is favored by 3. The over/under relatively high. I didn't realize it was this high when we were talking about our daily fantasy, but I kind of nailed it. It is 55.
Yeah.
In a game that I thought there would be a lot of points, since I thought there was going to be a lot of points in it, I'm going to ride with the... See, this is another game where you just don't want to bet that line. It's so shitty. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
So go with the side where you realize they don't have... You see that they don't have defenses. Winston's coming out of the gates, as we said. He typically comes out hot. Tampa Bay's got the Bengals defense, essentially. I mean, if you put those two defenses together and put their best players, they might be like the 29th ranked defense, 28th ranked defense.
Well
overall.
done.
Maybe they'd get a little bit better. Take the 55, go over that. It's just, you give me 55, you give me anything like above 53, I'm going over it.
All right. I understand that. So we've got Bucks 49ers here. Like I said, the most irrelevant game possibly in the NFL this week. So I don't want to talk on it too much. Definitely not a main play for me. I'm taking the Buccaneers straight up. Did you say it was 3 or 3.5?
3.
That's my tipping point. If it was 3.5, I'd have taken the 49ers. Since it's 3, I'm taking the Buccaneers.
Opened at 3.5.
Well, there you go. I'm going with dumb money. Let's go on to the Panthers and the Seahawks.
All right, here we go. This game's in Carolina. These games are always like knock them out, drag them out. It seems like the Seahawks versus the Panthers are always tight. It's always 9-6. History tells you to take the under in this game. Because if you go back, I don't even have to look. I'm telling you right now, if you go back and look, I would bet you their last 3 matchups have been 25 points or less total. Around 25 points or less in total.
Wow.
I would be willing to bet. I want you to look that up. No more than 30, but I'd be willing to bet that they're around 25 points.
I've got
somewhere
research
in that
going
area.
on it.
Get that under in this game. I like Carolina. I don't think Seattle's a good team, as I've said. They came off a fluke win against the Packers where they just decided to throw it every play. They're not good. Carolina and the under.
Yeah, Carolina and the under. Wow. What did you think that the last games were between these two?
I thought it'd be around 25 points.
All right, so the last time they played was December 4th of 2016. It was 40-7.
Whoa.
The year before that, it was January of 2016. It was 31-24.
I thought there was some slobber knockers in there, like a 9-6.
All right, so
15.
all you did was you missed like 3 or 4 years, because back in like 2013 or 2012 it was 16-12. Next time it was 12-7.
Yeah.
Next time it was 13-9.
Okay, those are the games I was thinking about. I guess I was off a few years here.
Yeah, you were only like a half decade off, which isn't terrible, but
that's fine. I will accept that. But I knew there was a 3 game area where they were both were 15-9, blah blah blah. Fuck it, I said it already.
Yeah, own it. The beautiful thing is you said it with confidence, and if I wouldn't have looked it up, everyone would have believed
it's not
you.
It's not on my card.
All right, guess what? It is on my card.
Ooh.
Only a 1-unit play though. You've got the unpredictable Panthers versus the Seahawks, who seem to find themselves competitive in every single game. If this game moves to 3.5. I'm either going to buy the hook or I'm going to avoid it in general. But okay, last week we talked about it. Lions versus Panthers. I said that Detroit and Carolina are the same exact team. It proved to be right. They literally almost tied that game. It should have been tied going into overtime, but they had that 2-point conversion instead. But this game plays to the Panthers' strengths. Carolina is super balanced on offense, and Seattle is balanced on defense, but I've talked about it before. Carolina's somewhat matchup proof. If you take away a couple of wide receiver options, Cam has the ability to run. If you stuff Christian McCaffrey, you play to his strength because they're going to give him the ball through the passing game. They are matchup proof on offense. But Seattle's strength right now on offense is running the game. They're averaging over 150 yards per game. Say that again?
Their strength on the offense is running the game.
They run the game. That's what I'm saying. They run the ball so well. They like the running game. They run the game.
Perfect.
If you were more hood, you'd understand what I'm saying.
Good explanation. Thanks for cleaning that up.
All right, so Seattle's really good at running is what I'm trying to say. Carolina's one of the best at stopping the run. They give up less than 100 yards per game. If this game was in Seattle, I probably wouldn't like it quite as much. But since it's in Carolina, since it's only 3 points, I'm doing a huge 1-unit play. That shows how confident I am in it. I'm doing a 1-unit play in Carolina.
All right. This game is going forever. Next.
All right. Next game, we have got the Ravens and the Raiders.
I'm getting yelled at here because it's taking forever. Anyways, Raiders and who?
Ravens and the Raiders.
Wow, what a terrible matchup.
You know what? Your wife's not yelling at you. Someone finally showed up to take advantage of that bet that you lost, and that's why she's screaming.
Apparently. Baltimore's 10.5-point favorites. Over-under here is 43.5. I mean, this slate of games this week just stinks to me. Baltimore should blow out Oakland. Coming off that, I don't know. This is impossible. If I have to pick a side, I got to go Baltimore because Oakland's just quits on the year.
Yeah, what'd you have for a line?
10.5.
Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. I'm taking the Ravens straight up. There's not a doubt in my mind. It's not an official play for me since I went through my 3 already. Honestly, if you're going to make me pick a side on this one, man, Lamar Jackson set a record for most rushing attempts by a quarterback in a game last week. He had 27 rushing attempts. They're going to kill that man. That's not sustainable. But what I think happened, though, in that game, they left some points on the field. There is an opportunity to utilize some play action, to utilize some trickery, and get some people deep. And I think they're finally going to they babied him in that game. I watched that entire thing. They babied him. They need to let him free up a little bit. I know he made a couple of mistakes, but they free him up. That offense can go to the next level. You're going to have your bumps. But, man, you taking the Ravens straight up, and just because it's the Raiders, I think I have to go against the spread with the Ravens as well.
That stinks. That line stinks.
All right, let's look at the Chargers and the Cardinals.
All right. Jesus, look at these spreads. Chargers favored by 12.
Some monster.
Over under 45.5. That's kind of a low over under, I feel like, for a game that but the Cardinals just might not score in general just because offensively they're just inept. I hate these. I hate these games. I hate that I have to make a pick. Obviously, straight up, money line, you go in the Chargers here, 100%. And if you have to go one side, go with the team that you're more confident that's going to win the game. Go with the Chargers. You can't bet the Cardinals in this situation.
I like how you said you hate that you have to make a pick here, but when we decided to do this type of podcast, it was your rule that we had to make a pick on every single one of them.
Yeah.
It's games like this where I didn't want to do that because it's so hard because I don't like those big spreads typically. But straight up, I'm going with 99% of the public, and I'm taking the Chargers. But here's why I like this game a little bit against the spread on the Chargers side as well. It's because they lost last week, and they lost on a game-winning field goal to a division rival in the Broncos. They are going to have to bounce back, and they were making a living off of beating up on lesser teams. They finally ran into the Broncos. Divisional games always seem to be a little bit more difficult to play in. I think that's what they ran up into there. I think they take it out on the Cardinals this week. I wouldn't be surprised to see this be a 20-point game. Not an official play, but I'm taking the Chargers.
There we go. Next.
All right, game of the week. Colts Dolphins. Looking forward to this one. I finally get to watch a little Andrew Luck being a Dolphins fan. So what do you got here in Indianapolis and Miami?
Colts favored by 9, over under 51.5. Look, the Colts are riding hot. Is Tannehill playing?
He's
ripping it in practice today, I saw, right?
He's got the probable tag, and that right arm is just a ripping.
Don't care. Colts have been solid defensively. Their offense is awesome right now. They're rolling. Slam the Colts. Keep it going. I don't care if the Dolphins are coming off bye.
I agree with that. Andrew Luck, like you said, now that with Goff being off this week, with Mahomes being off this week, man, I love, like I said, if you're using an expensive quarterback in daily fantasy this week, or if you have a lot of people in fantasy football this year drafted Andrew Luck later just because there was so much uncertainty around him. So you probably have two decent quarterbacks. Like you might have like a Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck debate. You might have a couple of guys that you can interchange in there. Use Andrew Luck this week. I think he's going to take advantage of that Dolphins secondary. It's in Indy on that fast track. Man, who's been hotter than Andrew Luck right now? Obviously the Mahomes and Goff, they're always out there in Breeze. But man, Andrew Luck has just been getting it done. Definitely taking the Colts straight up. As long as it stays under like 10.5, yeah, I got to take the Colts as well. Not a doubt in my mind.
Next.
Broncos and the Steelers.
This game is in Denver, in the Mile High Stadium with the altitude, right? That always affects everybody, isn't it, how it works?
That's what they say.
Pittsburgh are 3-point favorites on the road. I still think Big Ben sucks on the road, by the way, even though people like to refute that or whatever the word is. And the over-under is 47. As I said, I think Big Ben sucks on the road. I don't think he looked good against the Jaguars. He's got that altitude. He'll probably have 15 packs of ice on his knees. He won't be able to breathe. He's going to be wheezing Ben Roethlisberger. I'm taking Denver. I think they could pull off the win in this game.
I thought maybe we would be on opposite ends of this one because I was taking the dog as well. Not only do I like the Broncos against that line, but straight up, I am taking Denver as well. I mean, maybe they can ride a little bit of momentum here. I know their record isn't exactly what they want it to be at this point. I preseason said that I wouldn't be surprised if Denver ended up making a run at a wild card spot. I don't feel that's very realistic at this point. But man, the Steelers had that comeback win against the Jags. Obviously, a win is a win. If you're doing against that defense, that means something. The week prior to, they just put it to the Panthers. But I'm with you on that whole Ben Roethlisberger thing. He, despite his numbers not being quite as bad on the road this year and the wins coming more there, there's still something there. I'm still not sold about the Steelers on the road, especially in Denver. There just happens there's something about playing in Denver that sort of scares me. I don't like that. It's the damn air. It's the damn air.
Goddamn air.
I'm getting, 3.5 points?
3 points.
All right, I can lose by a field goal and still push if it's 3. Yeah, I'm going to take Denver in this one as well.
Beautiful.
Let's talk about that Packers-Vikings game. I'm looking forward to this game. Sunday night, correct?
Yep.
What do you got?
Minnesota. It's in Minnesota. Second game of the year for the Packers. The first one, as you remember, ended in a tie.
That's right.
Fluke game. Vikings are only favored by 3 at home. Over-under is 48.5. This is my last card game here. I'm going to go through this quickly. Here's what it comes down to. The Packers are the most desperate team in the NFL for a win, and yet teams are keeping them in that wild card race. They have the best QB to ever play the game, and people need to be reminded of that, and they're about to be. Everybody's written off the Packers, and I keep doing this. I might be slamming myself, making myself look bad. Everyone's going to bet Minnesota. I'm uncomfortable if I'm not uncomfortable. I got one unit against this. I'd like the Packers winning this game and making the playoffs. Let's go. Except I still want McCarthy fired.
It's an against the spread tradition where DJ gets to put his best line out there. I like that. Man, you made a good point, though, that one day. I don't know if you said you read an article or if it was just something you had thought of. But it was, man, it's almost like the Packers need to make that coaching change now before the Packers go on a run and Rodgers somehow saves McCarthy's job for the 15th time.
Yep.
Like, it's almost like you're battling against yourself there because long-term, you want him gone. You want him gone, but you can't fire him if he makes, like the divisional round of the playoffs or anything like that.
It's tough.
But, man, I got to go on the opposite side of here. I'm taking the Vikings, both straight up and against the spread. It's in the Viking Stadium. I was going to call it the Metrodome, but it's definitely not that
Stadium,
anymore. I think. US Bank, that's where it's going to be played. Vikings got to be pissed, man. They literally got embarrassed in that game against the Bears. I don't think that they're...
Kirk Cousins is bad.
I don't want to label Kirk Cousins as bad. He is an average quarterback. He gets propped up because the Vikings have an okay running game. It's not great. But, man, he's got some great weapons on the outside. That props him up a little bit. So we've seen him look a little bit better and a little bit more consistent than what he was in Washington. End of the day, though, he is exactly what he is. He's a just above average NFL quarterback. Is he going to be the long-term answer? The thing about the Vikings is they have a team where he can succeed. They can compete with him as the quarterback. No, he's not Rodgers. He's not Brady. He's not Brees. He's not any of those guys. But they are set up where he can compete. I think this is going to be a grinded-out game. This is going to come right down to the wire. But if it's only a field goal, I got to take the Vikings.
Sucks to be wrong.
Sucks to suck, right? Man, we get to follow up a great Sunday night game, and we saw last Monday having a fantastic game. And now this Monday we get Texans and Titans. What side do you got here?
I don't have a spread on here, so I'll just take the Titans because I think the Texans stink and they're on too much of a winning streak.
And I want to get to my overrated for the week, so I'm just going to go opposite because I already talked on the DFS podcast about Deshaun Watson. I think he has a bounce back week, so I'm going to take the Texans.
Good.
All right, real quick, just for the week, I've got one overrated, and since it's Thanksgiving week, I'm going to do this Thanksgiving style. My overrated for the week is turkey, and you know what's more overrated than turkey? Is stuffing.
Oh my god.
I will stick to the tradition. I will eat the normal Thanksgiving foods on dinner. But man, I have a tradition that's like a decade long at this point. Where at night on Thanksgiving, I have pizza. And that's the best meal of the day on Thanksgiving is my dinner pizza.
Overrated is you saying this every single year on this podcast and thinking that it's cool and stuff like that.
It's not.
It's overrated. It's Thanksgiving. Most people eat the turkey and like the stuffing. You're the only one. Overrated is you thinking you can go against the grain and say that this is overrated. I'm done with it.
Well, I know DJ's going to get yelled at if we go on any longer, so we can wrap this up. But as always, thanks again for listening. Check us out on Twitter at LoadedBox. Get signed up for this Devontae Adams Blaze mini helmet. So check us out on Twitter at LoadedBox. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. We'll be back next week previewing Week 13 already. We're heading into fantasy playoff time, so that'll be fun to discuss. Check us out on iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review. Search for Loaded Box. You know how to find us. DJ, why don't you go ahead and send us out?
Bye.